Hello, y'all. How y'all doing? This is Black Push here. We have Sean, our CEO. We have Darren. I am the digital media specialist. We have our special guest Tenor, and we also have Ari, our outreach manager. And we just want to first thank Disco Radio for allowing us to be in this space today.
Hey, so welcome back, everybody. This week, we're going to shift our show around just a little bit. First off, I want to give a shout out to everybody on the right side. This is my right side today. So we're going to get a shout out to Ari, who is our community outreach representative. She does a lot of work for us in the community, reaching out to different churches. And to Nora, who has decided just to join in on this because, as you guys know, we have not spent a lot of time, I don't think, Darren, talking about what Black Push is, what Newbie Corp is. We are at the base of who we are, Christian based. And there was a conversation that came up in my house yesterday that I was like, you know what? I'm going to kick the podcast off with that, even though we will have some other special guests throughout. But the big discussion is Adam and Eve, like Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, and they had such a valued opinion in the office. I was like, you know what? Let's save it for the podcast because we agree to kind of disagree. And I know Disco, you're gonna be on our side today on this one, right? Absolutely, right. When he gets this mic on, he's gonna be on our side on this. So we good. Disco, well, we'll see, because I may even bring Disco in on this one, this first part of the conversation. So Ari, who was wrong? Adam, or was it with Eve? And you got your little side, you got your little your side energy over here. So
my position is that they were both wrong. Um, but I think their story was the first story of choices, making choices, and accountability.
ooh.
Um, I think they were both in the wrong just because they were both presented with the same choice. Hey, God said, hey, I've created this whole world for you. It's nice and new, brand new. You can name whatever you want to name, do whatever you want to do. But there's this one tree that you can't touch. It's about, are you going to have, is it going to be representing good and evil? Those are your two choices. So, though them both receiving the same instructions, Eve went out, was easily tempted by a serpent that she'd never even, encountered before. And she took his word over her creator's. That was number one choice. And she went back, presented even with the choice that the serpent gave her, say, hey, your eyes are going to be opened. God is keeping this from you. She just took it and ran with it and brought it back to her, the person that was created, she was created from, which was Adam, and him knowing what God told them, he still accepted what she gave him anyway, didn't question it or anything. And so he made his choice to take it without question. And even when their eyes were open and they saw that they were, God said they noticed that they were naked and they, made clothes for themselves, etc. And when God saw them, like, why are you clothed now? And, she admitted what she did, but she immediately pointed to somebody else, pointed the blame to, oh, the serpent told me, this and that. So at what point did she take accountability for her action, for her choice that she made, which ruined us all in a sense, but it was the most important choice that, and I say we as humans, but her being the seed, her and Adam being the seed of humanity, to make that choice that determined the fate for everybody after them. So that's my standpoint.
So interestingly enough, right? Before we get started on our side, we're going to be gentlemen on this side, and we're going to let you, Sonora, jump in on this. Give us your opinion as well.
Um, well, I agree with.
Go ahead, we got you.
Okay, I agree with everything that Ari said. Accountability, choice, but also obedience. What it looks like not to obey God. I do think that Adam carried the bulk of the issues or where we went wrong. Eve, she played a part, but as women, we're created to be a helpmate, and the man is supposed to cover us. So she went by herself with the serpent, but where's her covering?
Darren,
Awesome.
I'm curious to know your opinion on this.
We're on air. I would say both are to blame equally.
I think I'm gonna be by myself today.
So, and I think just from how the story goes, I'm not a Bible bumper, but I have read it a few times. And the serpent got punished first. So I feel like God kind of weighed in on him more. The serpent being, it could be in human form, it could have been in spiritual form. But it got punished first. So I feel like the serpent probably weighed in and probably had the bulk of the punishment first. And then everybody else got their punishment in regards. And I mean, we can say, I guess we could deem whose punishment's worse. Men working, women having to deal with. So I wouldn't
You
personally
making a
want
face
to be.
like you have kids. You
I
making
know,
a face
right?
like-
No, but
She
I
made the
see
face, though.
people. I see a lot of.
So
Yeah.
yeah. But what y'all go through is beautiful too. But yeah, definitely. I guess you can weigh it in on that point.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Weirdly enough, once again, the reason why we're even having this discussion is I think that it kind of goes deeper, and I think that you kind of hit on two different things that kind of stuck out to me today that I never really realized, that it goes to accountability, and in a lot of things that we do here at Black Push, even with Newbie Corp, right? It stands for accountability. Like there's been things that we have stood up for per se that the public don't really agree with our opinion on. But once again, right is right and wrong is wrong, right? So when I think about the situation of Adam and Eve per se, I know that the Bible, God gave the commandment to Adam first. He really did. He told him that you can do of anything you want to do in the garden, but just don't touch this tree, right? That was something he told to Adam. We don't know if Eve was there when he told that to Adam. That part we don't know, right? Because we know that he put Adam to sleep, and then he created Eve at some point. Adam being Eve's covering, he should have gave her every commandment that God had given him, period, at the end of the day. Because if we're going to be a family, if God is going to give me one thing, it's my obligation as the man to share that with the family, right? And we can have a debate about later on, does God speak to the woman? Does God give insight to the woman? Yes, we know that throughout the Bible, but this was like the beginning foundation of it all. I still feel like, my personal belief, I think Adam told her. Right, because there was a part where Eve even said, where God told us to eat of every tree, but not this tree. So that means that there had to be some kind of dialogue, some kind of conversation there. And she was just still, she was caught up in the moment. She was tricked. But at the same time, you guys said something important. Adam was supposed to be her covering. And the question that we can all ask ourselves is, where the heck was Adam? Right? And it's funny because you guys kind of brought this to my attention today when we were walking to the restaurant. And you guys are like, well, the man is supposed to be on the outside. If a car gonna jump the road,
Don't hit both of y'all anyway.
right? But in their opinion, they say that the man's supposed to be on the
Don't
other
hit your
side.
leg and don't hit her.
You
Yeah,
kick her out the
You
way.
could push her out the way.
Yeah, how about you
though.
kick her out the way? There you go.
Okay.
But that goes back to the whole aspect of covering, right? Where was the man? Why was he not there? What is it that he could have done differently? So I
She
just
said he was. She said he
believe-
was there.
Okay. I believe, like, I got two women in here, but it's all good. Women are hard-headed regardless.
Mm.
So I believe they had a debate and an argument about the whole situation. And he got fed up and couldn't take no more and just let her do what she gonna do. Period.
so he ate it because she was she was
Just
getting on his nerves.
whatever. There wasn't no solution to it.
And they say
Because women are very powerful alpha women, and that's who they are. And we can tell them all day long what not to do and when they shouldn't do, but because it came from a man, we gonna do it anyway. So I think Buddy just got fed up and said, you know what? So have it. There it is.
There.
He
They
might
don't
have. He might have been out hunting. Who knows? He might have been gathering food. That's why
working
she
what his
got-
job was
what his
at the
job
point.
was. It
But
could
that
be so
goes
many
back to him
reasons.
saying like
Yeah.
Adam
it could be
had a
so many-
choice too. He had a choice to not take it.
Exactly. Yeah, I say it's both people.
Yeah, the
but-
commandment
He
was
knew
given to
better.
Adam.
The command was given to him, so he knew better. Directly.
And the only thing, if we're talking about like biblically who's correct, I mean, obviously it was Eve's fault. If you're going off the Bible alone, because the Bible states that with sin came into the world through Eve. So if you're doing biblical, but if we're doing ethical, I would say both people.
And I don't even snap, but I'm gonna
So-
snap
Well,
on that one.
I'm with that too because he should have been made sure she didn't do it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
He should have
both
been.
people.
I'm the captain of the ship. I'm the man of the house.
Because her role was to help
Follow lead.
him.
Yeah.
That's what she was created for. The woman was created to help. She was fit for that man.
Mhm.
She was created to help him. That was her purpose. Everything in that land had a purpose. Everything, including her.
True.
That is so true.
So you don't think they believed in each other? Is what it was?
I bet they did not
It had
have
to be a
enough
breakdown.
time or have that,
That's
you
pretty
know,
much what it
proper
is.
communication. Like,
They
hey,
didn't
this
believe
is
in each
our
other. They were
role.
questioning each other. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Same arguments we had today.
Yeah, it is. And in all reality, it's the same thing we have today because we have different things that I think, and I'm going to try to tie it into Black Push Newbie Corp, right? I think it's important that we kind of talk about what Black Push is, what Newbie Corp is. We're at the base of who we are. We are a religious organization, right? You look at Newbie Corp over here, over there, over here. You see a cross and an umbrella, and it's kind of interesting how we talk about covering today, because we understand that everything that we do in life, from a spiritual standpoint, we should be covered by something or someone bigger than ourselves, right? And Black Push, on the other hand, is once again spiritual because of the fact that we understand that forgiveness doesn't just stop at where we see forgiveness at. Forgiveness extends way past that, right? At the bulk of it, though, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, everybody's given a choice in life. And one of the things that I love so much about God is that God doesn't force anything upon us. He gives us choices in everything. The Bible says that there's no temptation given to man that God has not already given us a way out from, right? So if we decide that, hey, our bills are behind and we are going to trust God to pay the light bill or write a bad check just to extend us out another 3 days, that's your choice, right? And I've been there and I've made some of the wrong decisions. And I made some of the right ones. And some of the right ones, even though my lights had to go off for a few hours, like that thing worked itself out. And when it worked itself out, not only did it get paid, it got paid for 2, 3, 4 months down the line. You know what I'm saying? But once again, going back to Adam and Eve, I think that once again, and you know what? Interestingly enough, this is funny because there's a book in the Bible, and I think it's Corinthians or Romans. Paul says that he prefers for a man not to be married because if a man is married to a woman, then he's more caught up in pleasing his wife, right? And he prefers for a woman not to be married to a man because if she's married to a man, then she is more caught up in pleasing her husband, right? But then he goes on to say, but if you can't abstain from the lust of the world, then you kind of get married to avoid that, right? And I think that perspective comes from the fact that for a man, for a good man, let's correct that, for a good man, right? If a man is good, he's going to do whatever it takes to try to please his wife. And sometimes even if it means some stepping outside of his comfort zone, sometimes it even means when he know he shouldn't. It's funny because I was at a house one time where we were hosting men who had just been previously incarcerated, and a lot of them were drug offenders, right? And I asked the question, how did you get to be a drug offender? Like, it was like, because, man, my old lady, man, she was putting pressure on me. I had to go out and do something, right? I had to go out and do something because she wasn't, she wasn't happy with me bringing $750 home a day, right? She needed more than $750. She wanted $4,000 coming into the household every day instead of $325 coming into the household every day. So he worked hard in the wrong way to try to make sure he pleased his wife and pleased his household. And I can see Adam being in that same predicament.
Okay, that story you talking about right there. Did she meet Buddy like that?
Right. He chose her.
Now, when she met Buddy, did he have that going on, and he stopped to do because I know people, where we from, matter of fact.
Because you from Miami.
Yeah, we in the street, they're in the streets, and you meet a female and she used to that lifestyle. And once you change your life around, they all ain't gonna accept that. So when she met Buddy, was he in a lifestyle to stop because he got it like that?
The question, and that's a very good point, actually, and it does lead to me a question. So what do you do when you in that type of situation? For you guys, like for women, I want to hear from the women's perspective first, then we'll jump over to the guy's side. You met a guy, and you met him one way, right? You've evolved. Let's say you two were not, you knew God, you were okay with God. He was cool, right? But he wasn't something that was on the top of your agenda, right? Then you grow in your relationship with God. And now the guy who you grow in your relationship with God, where he was doing one thing before, you look at him differently. You see him differently. Like, I'm tired of you being at home while I'm at work. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was okay because when I didn't have that relationship with God, I didn't have expectations for you. Now that I do have expectations for you, like, how do you guys convert over to, like, dealing with that? Like, you follow what I'm saying? Does it make sense? Because Ari, you look, your faces, I always say your faces throw me off, so I can't look at your face. Let's start with you, Tenora. Does it make sense?
It does. I think it should start off as a conversation about where they are individually, where they want to go. And if that doesn't work, I mean, you're not married. And if you are you're building a relationship with Christ, um, and he's not like on the same path or trying to get there, God's gonna have something better for you. So just trust him, be okay to let go.
But what if you are married to him?
Well, then you got to pray for it. You just got to pray for it. Pray for it.
All right.
I guess I have a different perspective just because I think that if you're that.
Well, I got you guys to split perspectives this time.
Well,
Yes.
not necessarily split.
We
but
got one.
I think it's important to, if someone is not necessarily loves you enough, but if they see how something is so important to you, either they're going to be open enough to change it about themselves and want to maybe grow on that path with you, and may not necessarily stay on that path together, but at least willing to explore that with you. Or, they could just not be about it. You cannot communicate with it and just, like you said, let it go, pray on it. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. But that's on your own personal relationship with God, and how are you able to listen to him and follow what he wants for you. Maybe that person was only supposed to be with you for that certain amount of time. Who knows? It could be many reasons, but if you're growing together, you're working towards something together. If you're not, then it's not meant for you, and it'll work itself out. But God has a plan for everything.
Sometimes he uses people to push you into the destiny you need, but doesn't mean that person's meant to stay on the next level you go to. What about you? Like, what would you do, Darren? You got a lot going on in your own life. You wrote a book, which I'm not going to get a title today. You wrote a book, but you just moved it from Florida. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really cool too, because these people, Darren and Ari, works with me every single day. Like, Ari deals with communications. She reaches out to different churches. We deal with different events. I think you got an event coming up with Paint and Sip coming up at the end of the month on the 27th, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to be hosted virtually, right?
And in person.
Virtually and in person. So, and you deal with our social media, right? You deal with every aspect of it. You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on Twitter. So every time you see something that comes out from us, it's because of him. But what I want to say from that is that you have your own journey that you're going through. You write your own book. You have your own businesses that you got going on. You just moved here from the 850, which stretches all the way from
Tallahassee
to Madison, where Ray Charles is from. Mm-hmm. So, all the way to Pensacola. So, I'm just saying, like, you're going through your own journey. So, like, how I know you've progressed, right? Mm-hmm. You progressed from where you used to be, right? How is it that for you, the progression has been? And have you found yourself in relationships where you was like, oh, it was cool back then, the things we did, but now it's like, I'm on a whole nother level kind of deal?
Definitely. That's my reason for being single now. I ain't gonna get to no dating platforms.
Don't.
But I know, right?
Is that a fire hydrant? No, I'm playing.
So I think it's just, I have, like, as a writer, I know you say you're a writer as well. We're always trying to come up with innovative ways to do things, creative ways to formulate plans. So I have, like, very ubiquitous genius. So I try and draw from a bunch of different areas, and sometimes that gets really, like, it gets complicated. So I think that was my hardest thing. Like, I try to find different ways to advance. And sometimes they go against faith, or they go against something that they learned growing up. But it's never nothing detrimental.
Right.
But definitely, it's definitely hard when you're trying to introduce different things. Like something simple as, say, like meditation. And to a Christian, it's like meditation seems like something only Buddhist people do. And it's like, nah, like Africans been doing it, East Indian, everybody meditates. Everybody's been doing it for centuries. It's just different ways of thinking that I might accommodate that the other person may not. So
yeah, and that's interesting because I think there's a verse in the Bible that says meditate upon the word day and night, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I use meditation, and for me, but I guess it's in the context of what I meditate on, right?
Exactly.
So for me, I meditate on verses in the Bible. I meditate on promises in the Bible. But at the same time, meditation has been used for me to be time where God gives me guidance on things that I may not have guidance on, right? Mm-hmm. I think personally, from a person who's been in relationships before, that the hardest type of relationship is to be in one where you're going this way and the other person's going this way. And it's like that tug of war, right?
Exactly.
Ultimately, one of you are going to be stronger. And I've learned in my own life, like when you're trying to go a spiritual journey, it's always stronger to play tug of war with somebody who's on a worldly journey. Why? Because the worldly journey for me and for us, we can touch that, we can see that, we can feel that, we know what that's like. But the spiritual journey, we're going off of what Hebrews 11 says. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen. It's something that we're trying to push for, something that sometimes we don't always see the end result of, right? And I think it was Tyler Perry in his last play. He said that there's a reason why the rear view mirror is smaller than the front window, right? Simply meaning that sometimes about things about our past are not meant for us to stay and linger on, kind of deal. But it's always better for us to kind of look towards the future, even though we don't know what the future holds. Kind of looking towards the future, and I think that's pretty interesting. Even starting off with like your perception of Adam and Eve, as much as I argue this point, I do believe both of them had a fault in it. You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't have a fault in it, and God wouldn't have punished them. The Bible says that he's a righteous judge, right? He punished everybody in the room. So obviously he found fault in everything that everybody did during that day. He started with the serpent. Then he went to the woman, and he ended up with the man, right? So I think that's pretty interesting. But I think it's pretty interesting to have the dialogue and hear from other perspectives as well, because when we can have dialogues like this, people, are not when we can have dialogues like this, I ain't gonna throw no shade today. When we can, not now. When we can have dialogues like this, I think it's important because once again, at the core of everything that we do at Newbie Corp and Black Push, we are faith-based, right? And we've had a lot of podcasts. We've talked to a lot of different people, talked about a lot of different issues, but we never really talked about different opinions on what is going on from a biblical standpoint. And I'll say this, like as an associate pastor, the church itself is not holding up to the standards in which the church was built for. And I'll say that to everybody. I don't care how you feel about it. I don't care who gets offended by it. When we have 10 churches on one block and there's still thousands of people homeless, there's a problem, right? There's no power in that. I mean, if you believe in the Bible, if you understand anything about the Bible, when the day of Pentecost came, like everybody had what they needed because everybody was on one accord. Everybody was doing the same thing. When I can't put a church across the street from your church because you're worried about me coming into your territory, we got a problem in the spiritual realm, right? So we're going to continue to talk. That is even a social injustice issue, and that's something that we're going to continue to talk about and continue to push, because as pastors, as leaders in the community, this is a shout out to you guys. We have to do better. We must do better. We must work together, because it makes no sense for all of us to be working for the same goal, but at the same time doing it on separate templates. Ain't that right, Ariel? Ariel knows, because she's trying to call them. So I'm telling you, she knows, and it's extremely difficult. So real quick, before we end up closing out this segment, because we do have another special guest that's coming on, which I'm kind of really excited about. I'm really excited about the next guest. Like, this is going to be so cool for me. But real quick, does anybody, from that point, like from a spiritual point, anything that you just want to share with people? Maybe something that's laid upon your heart. Maybe something that you're going through that may encourage somebody else. You just never know.
That's related to the
Whatever.
Oh, just in general.
Stay focused.
Just the power of manifesting and learning for your own self what that means for you. Everybody manifests differently for what works for them. But just knowing the power of it and just focusing on the positive, no matter how low you are in your life or how high up you feel. Manifesting is powerful. Our mouths are powerful. And just being able to be diligent with that. That's all.
And I'm gonna make sure I get you in somebody's pulpit. What you talking about? I see a women's group or something coming together. You can teach it. What's up, Tenora?
I don't have anything to add.
But thank you guys again. We're gonna take a break before we go into our next segment. Yeah. So we're going to take a break before we go into our next segment, you guys. But stay tuned with us. We'll be back in about 6 minutes. Just stay tuned, because we have a powerful organization that we are working with, or will be working with soon, in the state of Florida. And we have a representative from that organization that's going to join us via Zoom. So don't go anywhere, because you don't want to miss the second half of the segment. everyone, it's Sean again. Have some really exciting news for you guys. So I want to tell you about two events we have coming up. They're coming up back to back. Our first event is our Community in Touch seminar on March 20th from 5 to 7 p.m. It'll be virtual. We'll have people like D.A. Brody. We'll have people like Judge Angela Brown. We'll have people like D.A. Passy. We'll have people like Sheriff Craig Owens and so many other politicians. We have state representatives, state senators that will be on. And hopefully we'll have one of our U.S. senators on as well to answer your questions about what's going on in the community. But it doesn't stop there. The following day, we'll be at Creative Light Ministry, 285 Merchants Drive in Dallas, Georgia, 30132, where we'll have a service at 12 o'clock, and immediately after the service, if you want to come out and support, we'll be feeding over 200 people who are homeless. So join us for these two events as we get ready to kind of build our community better. To register for any of these events, you can go to our website at www.blackpush.org, or you can go to www.newbiecorp.org, or find us on Facebook, and you can register for any one of these events or make a donation to these events. We look forward to your help. And remember, here at Newbie Corp, here at Black Push, here at Create Life Ministries, we're building better together. You guys have a blessed day. See you soon. Hey y'all, so we're back. We are back. And I'm extremely excited about the person I have on next. Like, yeah. So everybody who, just to give our introduction, most people don't know. Hey, I love the background. Is that a real background?
Yeah.
That's a filter. But the next person I have on somebody who's I'm extremely close to. It is my mother, and I kind of want to bring home because with Black Push and push her like on Newbie Corp, push cover Newbie Corp. Sorry, I wanted to kind of bring home because her story to me is amazing, and the things that she's been through is amazing. But more importantly, the things that she's doing now in Florida is amazing because most people don't know that some of the things we have going on in Florida, as far as Georgia, voter suppression, people trying to hinder the rights of ex-offenders, is going on in Florida too. And she's playing a huge role in that in her new position. So, Ma, first off, kind of tell your story, like where you come from, how you got here, all that. Let's tell the people.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for asking me to come on, Sean. Like, I'm sitting here thinking that my mother, your grandmother, is smiling in heaven right now. You know, man, I love you, and I'm so proud of you and the things that you're doing. Just a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale. I'm an only child. My mother had 16 children. 2 died at birth, so she raised 14 children. So when my mother, she always told me she made this vow that when she had children of her own, like the life that she wanted to give them, the life that she didn't have, her mother couldn't afford to give her. Like she shared with me that she never even received new clothes when she was a kid. Everything, she was like, I think number 4, 5, something like that, child. And all her clothes was hand me downs because she had 2 older sisters. And but one of the things that we laughed about is like, but my grandmother was firm. She was, you know, she pushed you to be the best that you can be. You know, you couldn't come in her house and say, "Look, I'm not going back to school no more," and it'd be okay. You just did not try my grandmother like that. But by the time my mom had me, a lot of that stuff, she had relaxed a lot of those rules. You know, she gave me everything that she could give me. You know, I love her so much for that. But anyway, being an only child, my mom and my dad divorced when I was like 8 years old, 8.5, 9 years old. And I can remember like I was so angry with my mom because I was a daddy's girl. You know, my dad was a truck driver. And so he used to take me on rides for him, you know, and like I love my dad. And at that time, you know, you really didn't get black parents, black mothers that would tell you anything negative about your father. You know, she used to dress me up on Saturdays, and I used to sit in this big picture frame window waiting for him to come, and he wouldn't show up. And I tell that because I think that's where a lot of the stuff started for me at 9 years old. I can remember feeling like why he don't love me. Did he want a boy? What do I need to do? Is it the way I act? Is it because I'm too fat? All these kind of things I was wondering because that was where I first experienced what's the word I'm looking for? Just not feeling good enough, abandonment. And it started at the age of 9 with my dad and my mom divorced. So I went through life. I hated being the only child. I have a video of my mom talking about like all the problems I gave her as a kid. Like I would try to, I would try to take pills, swallow pills, all kind of stuff, just to try to. I didn't like being who I was, and I didn't like the fact that that I felt like my dad didn't love me anymore. And so my grandmother moved in with my mom when I was at 9, because my grandmother moved in to take care of me while my mother worked. And my grandmother kept all her grandchildren at that time. It was about 15 of us that she used to keep every day. And I remember every day at 12 o'clock, she'll make us get on our knees and pray. And she instilled in us who God was. We went to church 3 days a week. My grandmother was her faith was she was holiness, sanctified. um, and I love my grandmother because she and my mother too. They both planted the seed. They let me know that there was a God who loved me in spite of anything. He loved me. So even when I went into the streets, I knew that God loved me. Um, but I also again felt like with God the same way I felt about my dad, like I wasn't good enough though. And so I went through life feeling like I had to get better and become a certain person before I was able to tap into to God. And so anyway, at the age of I think about 19, I started experimenting with drugs. Well, let me go back a little bit. At the age of 14, I experimented with a boy. And back then, you just did not go to your parents and say, "Hey, look, I think I want to have sex. Can you give me some information?" We kind of you shared that kind of stuff with your friends who didn't know any more than what you knew. So, needless to say, I got to high school, my ninth grade year. I love basketball, and I made the basketball team. And when I had to, I started feeling sick. To make a long story short, I was pregnant. And I couldn't understand how, because the only thing me and the little boy was doing was playing around. Today I know how. Back then I didn't know. So I was a teenage mother. My first son was born when I was 15. From that, at 19, like I said, I started experimenting with drugs. And I tell these kids today, like, first it started out with alcohol for me. I remember, and I should have known then that something was kind of wrong with me. I remember taking my first drink, me and my cousin, and in that crowd, everybody had one beer, tall bull. I had to drink the other five, and I remember being so sick. I mean, when I got home that night, I was throwing up everywhere. But that was the beginning. When I look back at my life now, I how do I say it? Like there was addiction in my, the addiction runs through my family for one, and but my mother didn't know enough to share with me like I share with my kids. I told them, I said, look, I'm an addict. And I want you to know if you could go out with 10 of your friends and try drugs, if there was one person that was probably going to be addicted, it will probably be you because I'm an addict. And I do believe that some of this stuff could be could be brought on to the bloodline. I really believe that. Anyway, so drugs kicked my butt, for 20 years. I was, I started out with the alcohol and ended up a full blown crack addict, you know. for like 20 years. I broke my mother's heart, because that's not what she wanted for her child, her only child. My mother wanted me to graduate from high school, get married, had a white picket fence and the children, and I did none of that. I dropped out of high school in my senior year because I always wanted to be grown first. I wanted to be. I thought that it was cool. I was automatic. I was attracted to the pimps, the players, the drug dealers because I liked money and flashy things. And at that time, that's what I was attracted to. And so I ended up being a full blown crack addict for 20 years. In the midst of being a crack addict, I had two more children, which I had a total of three children. And I'm so grateful to my mother today because my mother, she stepped in and she raised my kids. And so they didn't have to experience going into foster care or being adopted. And I love her for that. So 20 years of getting high back and forth, going in and out of jail. I went to prison twice. And I remember the first time I went to prison, it felt like they had rescued me because I was smoking crack real bad. I was on the streets. And when I went, I didn't want to leave. I mean, I felt like I had been rescued. And the second time I went to prison, I had been introduced to Narcotics Anonymous. Let me tell you that too. Narcotics Anonymous planted a seed in my life. One time, when I was 16, I called myself taking a bunch of pills and I wanted my mother to feel sorry for me. And a lot of times, that's how I thought I had to get my mother's attention, by doing negative things like that. And I took a bunch of pills. And I remember going to the hospital and the doctor asked the series of questions. And they asked me, had I ever drank or used drugs? And I had drank. So he convinced my mom that she needed to pay $30,000 to send me to a treatment center. And when I went to that treatment center, I was chill because again, I'm an only child. I hated being home because I hated being alone. I didn't like being by myself. So when I went into this treatment program, I was excited because I was there with people, a bunch of people. I was the youngest one there though at that time. Like everybody was in their late 20s, 30s, 40s. And here I'm sitting in there and I'm saying to myself, like, how do you lose your whole life with alcohol and drugs? I go back to that spot because, when I first went into treatment, I hadn't even been introduced to the drug that really took me out. Right. I had just drank a little bit. But so when I went there, I took it as a playtime. Like when they were in group, I was in the kitchen eating or on the basketball court. I didn't take group seriously because I felt like none of that stuff applied to me. 30 years later, I realized that it applied to me back then because had I listened to the people talk about the feelings that it wasn't about the drugs, it was about the feelings. And they were talking about the feelings of abandonment, a feeling of not wanting to be in your own skin, a feeling of having to drink so that they can even hold a conversation, or having to use drugs, just to feel comfortable. I could have identified with that then because, like I said, I started feeling those feelings at 9. So, well, anyways, so but I'm grateful that the seed was planted. The seed was planted, and 20 years in and out, in and out. I don't know. I had a praying mother. I have a video my mom left me, and she said, Pat, one thing you need to know is that you have a praying mother, and your children have a praying grandmother. I pray all day and night, and she did. And I'm so grateful for the prayers of my mother and my family, because if it wasn't for those prayers, I know I wouldn't be here today. Because even in the midst of me doing wrong, and I can remember times of using drugs and when I didn't even want to use them, but I was addicted, and but I prayed anyway, and I'm so glad I did. Now like I said, I went to prison twice. And my last trip I went to prison, I had been clean for like a year and I relapsed and I went to prison. That second time, I was ready to get out. And I never forget what I said to a lot of my friends there. I said, look, I'm not coming back here no more. This is it for me. I had had a taste of life that I could live a different life. And I told him, I said, this is it. I'm not coming back. You know, I was running NA classes in the jail. All my friends used to laugh at me because, you know, that wasn't cool. But I didn't care about being cool. I was ready to get out and live a life because I had a taste of that there was a real life out there for me and that I could live it. You know, and I want to say it's been 30 years since I've been arrested. You know, I have been arrested in 30 years, man. And oh no, so um, but you know what? The thing that I used to think that drugs was the worst thing that could have happened to me. I don't feel like that today. It was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me because it made me the woman that I am today. You know, it made me build my own personal relationship with God. You know, I couldn't ride out on my mother's relationship or my grandmother's relationship. I had to get to know God for myself, and I'm grateful for that. You know, so you know, I'm a proud member of Narcotics Anonymous still to this day. You know, I go to meetings, I work still, so I have a sponsor, and about what I would say about 18 years ago, I applied for this job, and one of my friends was working in a place that's called Broward House, and Broward House is the agency that caters to people who are HIV positive or have AIDS or at risk. And I remember going and getting a job there, and because another thing, HIV just ramshacked my family. I lost so many people to in my family to HIV, you know, and the one that touched me the most though, I remember I was in Memphis, Tennessee, because that's where my dad lived at after him and my mom broke up. And my dad, I could see that something was wrong with him because he was real frail and not the man who I had, you know, had known all my life. And he shared with me, he said, Pat, I haven't told anybody, but I'm gonna tell you. And he told me that he had AIDS. And I never knew. I said, well, why you want to tell? Because I had a sister that he has a daughter that's older than me. Why didn't you tell her? Like, why did you put this on me? And my dad told me at that time, he said that he felt like I was one of the strongest, one of his stronger kids. And but here it is. I'm walking into this store to work with people who are HIV positive. And about 2 weeks of working there and working in the community, I went into my boss office and I said to him, I said, James, I see women, black women out here are dying and nobody's doing anything about it. You know, all of the funding is going to white gay men, but it's not just a white gay man disease. It's a disease that anyone can get. You know, and right now it's devastating the black community. But you guys don't have any programs, especially when it comes to women. Black women are getting infected 17 times higher than white women in the state of Florida. Miami and Fort Lauderdale, which is Broward County, we run back to back. 1 week, they has the most cases and new infections, and then Broward to have it the following week. And the one of the zip codes that was the highest in the state of Florida in Broward County was 33311. And that was a zip code that I grew up in, I worked in, I worshiped in, I played in, and I was just not okay with knowing that, you know, hey, this my community is dying and nobody is doing anything about it. And you know, I love my boss, man. This guy, he encouraged me. He was like, Patricia, get your computer, come on. And I went into his office and we went on the CDC website and we found a program called Sister. And Sister is Sisters Informing Sisters on the topic of HIV and AIDS. And I love that. I love that program. And one of the things that I loved about Sister, when I went to the training to be a trainer, you know, I was looking for us to go through all this, like book work. And before we got started with the book work, they made us we had to talk about us. That's when they told us that, in order to help someone else, you have to work on a lot of your own pain. And man, I was in this class with women who were doctors and people were boohoo crying. I mean, they scared me at first because it was too real and I didn't know if I wanted to feel that at work. But that was one of the best things that happened to me. I think that was the turning point in my life, because it made me be real. It made me take a real look at Pat, along with NA, because NA does the same thing. But
And I'm going to jump in, right? Because we got like 9 minutes left, and I want to talk about what you're currently doing, right? But throw this out there too. At this point, you passed the GED phase, you passed your bachelor's phase, which I remember going to that graduation ceremony, and you passed your master's stage, right? So that's a
yeah,
kudos too. So I mean, one of the things that we like to talk about on Black Push is that we not only like to talk about the things that we're currently doing in the community, we like to talk about the people who have become success stories, right? My mom, a guy named Ricky Mims, who went from being in prison for over 20 years to working for Kwanzaa Hall as at the U.S. House of Representatives, right? I think there's even a picture of you on a T-shirt with Obama's arm around you, right? When he was down in Fort Lauderdale doing an
yeah,
event. And I remember one of the biggest moments for me, per se, and I think I called you afterwards when I was sitting at a stop sign I think it was Atlantic, whatever I was at. I was sitting at a stop sign, and I looked over at a bus, and I went like this, and I was like, "Dang, that lady looks like my mama." And I went back to driving, and I was like, and I looked back over at the bus, and I was like, "Dang, that is my mama." And her face was like plastered on like 20 buses down in Broward County. But I know you work for Florida Rising now. Tell us what Florida Rising is. What are some of the things that you guys are doing down there?
yeah. So after 15 years of working with the HIV arena, God brought me to work with a political organization. And what I loved about this political organization that made me want to stay, because this is an organization that I don't have to hide when just say that we work with helping Black and brown folks. Florida Rising, we used to be formerly New Florida Majority. Now I am the criminal justice organizer for the state of Florida. And what made me really want to get into criminal justice, because criminal justice is me. I can remember when Obama got elected the second round, I had voted for all those years that I was out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a productive member paying taxes. And they sent me a nice little letter that said, hey, look, you can no longer vote. You have not restored your rights. And I'm like, what are they talking about? So I went to one of my friends who was a commissioner at the time, and we looked it up. They said I had like $1,200 in fines and fees, and I said, wow. So last year, Florida Majority, along with FRRC and Dream Defenders, we decided to push a bill that will allow ex felons to vote,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a lot of ex felons that wanted to vote and we could not vote. And they fought us back and forth with it. They passed it, then they said, well, if you still owe fine and fees, you can't vote. And then organizations like New Florida Rising, Dream Defenders, FRRC, and other organizations got together and they paid fines and fees for a lot of ex felons. So last year I was able to vote again. And this year, right now we're in session right now in Tallahassee. We're working on a bill, this HB1 bill, where our great governor decided that he wants to criminalize people for peaceful protest.
Oh wow.
And yeah, yeah. And we know that that's something that attacks Black and brown folks. My question is, where was that bill when they was at the Capitol, when they did all the work, all this stuff they did at the Capitol? Oh, my computer for that. Yeah, I hope it'll go out. So yes, that's what I do. And we got a bill passed called the Tammy Jackson Act. We had a young lady who had mental health issues in the county jail. She was pregnant when she went in. She was in her last trimester. They put her in solitary confinement. The young lady screamed and yelled and cried out for 7 hours. None of the deputies would open the door. By the time they decided to open the door, the young lady had the baby on the cold floor and was eating on the umbilical cord. So we got to act we got a law passed, and they're actually trying to uh try to throw some, some shady stuff in it. But we got a law passed that they cannot put pregnant women in solitary confinement. And we're trying to, we're trying to get one of our prisons in Florida closed down. But yeah, I am so excited about the new position. And like, another thing I'm trying to do is like, if you've gone to prison and you've done your time, you come out, you're paying tax, and you're a productive member of society. Take the stamp off our heads.
Right.
Because I was able to go into the jail and teach classes for 10 years. However, when it came time to apply for a job there, they would not let me have a job because of a charge that was 32 years old.
Oh wow.
And so that's the piece of legislation I'm going to pick up, because that affects a lot of people. So Sean, I am so grateful. I love what you're doing. Like I said, you're going to have to help me get this podcast thing set up with Florida Rising, because I would love to have conversations like this with my community in Florida on a Saturday afternoon. Thank you all so much, and it was nice meeting you.
And
Sean,
real
keep doing
quick,
it.
and real
Thank you.
quick though, just so people know, if they want to go look up Florida Rising and more information about it, you guys have a website, I'm assuming.
Yes, it's FloridaRising.org.
.org. So floridarising.org. And the reason why I wanted to have my mom on, not only because I feel like she's awesome and her story is awesome, I also just feel like a lot of things that's going on in Florida, as we know, are going on in Georgia. Ari, you had the opportunity to go with us last week to do your protesting. We were protesting in Georgia a bill called HB 531, where they were trying to restrict the way we're able to vote, limit the way we're able to do absentee ballots. And that bill did pass the House. But at the same time, we have to understand here in Georgia, just because it passed the House does not mean that it's over with, right? We still has to go through the Senate. There still has to go to committees to be voted on. So we need everybody out there, whether you're in Florida, whether you're in Georgia. The biggest voice you have is your voice to vote. And definitely for ex-offenders, when they take away that voice, then that makes the criminal justice system not obligated to being responsible for us, if that makes sense. To giving us the right to vote, to giving us the right. It's funny because I realized that too. And here in Georgia, you get the right to vote once you have served your time, right? If a judge looks at you and they want to be judged for another 20 years, they don't look at you as now like somebody who they can put away for 20 years on a 5-year crime, right? Because they know that at the end of 5 years, you automatically get your rights restored back. So they look at you differently. In Florida, that was not the case until like 2 years ago when they passed the legislation. And then the governor decided that, hey, you know what, y'all don't know what you're talking about, so we're going to adjust it and make it right. When the bill was real clear, it was that once a person served their time back, they get their rights to be restored back. So I want to encourage you guys, definitely in Florida, thanks for having my mom on, in Georgia, pay attention to what policies are going on in your state. And I encourage everybody right now, if we want to stop a lot of the voter suppression things that's going on, we can stop it without even having to deal with our state if we can push the people in Congress and in the Senate to pass HB1, to pass HB3, and to pass other legislation that will prohibit the states from being able to even do this, from gerrymandering, from being able to stop absentee voting. Because the bill they just passed in the House right now would automatically register everybody to vote, including ex-offenders, if they serve their time. Will automatically do it, and the state will have nothing that they can do except for take it to the Supreme Court. But by that time, Supreme Court their job is to interpret law. It'll be law, right? So we have to be more encouraged. We have to be a part of the policy discussion that's going on. But I do want to thank everybody who participated today. I know this is a little different, talking about Adam and Eve with Ari and Tenora, but I think it was a good discussion about the spirituality of it. And just talking in general with my mom about what they're doing at Florida. Is it Florida Organizing? Florida, help me.
Florida
I'm
Rising.
sorry, Rising.
FloridaRising.org. Florida
Yes,
Rising.
Go on and take a look at us.
Yeah, FloridaRising.org. And congratulations for your new position as say it again. I just like you said it.
I'm the criminal justice organizer for the state of Florida.
For the state of Florida, man. And I'm just trying to get through Atlanta. So that's a
Florida's
big
big
task.
state.
And we want to support that. as much as possible. But everybody, thank you for joining on to our podcast. I want to encourage everybody to check out www.blackpush.org. We have a whole bunch of events coming up. We have a paint and sip coming up on the 27th of this month. Before that, we have a community event where we're having politicians from around the state who will be on Zoom, and they'll be answering questions from the community. That's on March 20th from 5 to 7. And the following day on March 21st, we'll be doing a homeless feeding at Created Light Ministries, where we'll have church service from 12 to 2. And after that, we'll feed anybody in the community who wants a meal. We'll be doing that from 2 to 4. And we have a whole bunch of more events coming up. We have a bingo night coming up that's virtual. We have a wine tasting that's coming up that's going to be virtual.
Wine tasting, yeah.
We have a whole bunch coming up, and we want you guys to be a part of it. And we want you guys to notice, too, from Black Push's perspective and from Newbie Corp, we will not stop pushing. We're out here pushing every day. We want to meet with every representative in the state of Georgia. I don't care whether you have a D next to your name or R next to your name. We want to hold the conversation with you. And we are encouraged. And we call out Governor Brian Kemp. You got our request for a meeting. We're waiting on your response. I'm looking for that response, right? Because I feel like as elected officials, no one should hide behind the door or behind the security. It's your obligation to speak to the constituents in which you serve. And I'm a constituent of the state of Georgia. So we just want to challenge everybody. And at the end of this, it's all about building better together. We'll see you guys next week when we'll have on Roy. And she'll be here talking about Paulding. And our next week host will be Darren and Ari. So we're going to give it up to them. They'll be here next week with Roy. And we just want to thank, again, DISCO100 for everything that you do, man, and for everything that you're trying to do. And I want you guys to go to our website as well, because we're going to be posting some things about a football team that he has, and he needs donations as well. So you can donate through our website, and that money will go directly to him. But your organization, it go to the kids. Clarify that. It will go to the kids, but we're going to continue to partner with DISCO100, Cobb County Police Department, Cobb Sheriff's Office, and everybody else, and Paulding County Police Department we're also working with. So thank you guys for joining us this week. Continue to follow us on our websites, on the different websites we've had. And remember, you guys, we can do this a whole lot better when we build better together. You guys have a blessed day.